Hi and welcome, I'm Andy Miuch and you are watching AnewZ. Here are the headlines. Donald Trump announces deals with Qatar during the second leg of his Middle East tour. The United States set to lift sanctions on Syria. Donald Trump meets Ahmed al-Sharaa. The EU imposes new sanctions package on Russia, considers tariffs on Ukrainian imports. Thank you for tuning in. US President Donald Trump has announced a series of economic and defense deals with Qatar, including a record order for 160 Boeing planes. During the Doha stop of his Middle East tour, Trump met with Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani to discuss Russia and Ukraine, as well as Iran, which Trump says Qatar has been a great help with. The White House published the details of the agreements signed, stating the deals will generate an exchange worth at least $1.2 trillion. During the first leg of his Gulf tour while in Saudi Arabia, Donald Trump said he will order the lifting of all sanctions on Syria. He later met with Syria's interim president Ahmed al-Sharaa and urged him to establish ties with Israel.
All American sanctions on Syria will be lifted. That's what US President Donald Trump announced after his discussions with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Riyadh on Tuesday. Both nations had urged Washington to ease restrictions on Damascus.
And I'm very pleased to announce that Secretary Marco Rubio will be meeting with the new Syrian foreign minister in Turkey later this week. And very importantly, after discussing the situation in Syria with the Crown Prince, your Crown Prince, and also with President Erdogan of Turkey, who called me the other day and asked for a very similar thing, among others, and friends of mine, people that I have a lot of respect for in the Middle East, I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
The decision marks a sharp shift in US foreign policy. The sanctions, first imposed under Bashar al-Assad, had isolated Syria from the international financial system and blocked investment critical for post-war recovery. The United Nations welcomed the move. A spokesperson says lifting sanctions could help rebuild Syria's economy and restore access to humanitarian aid after more than a decade of war and underinvestment.
To see relief on sanctions on Syria, to help the reconstruction of Syria, to help the Syrian people recover from more than a decade of conflict, a decade of underinvestment, and we continue to support the reconstruction, whether it's physical or psychological, of Syria, for it to be a country where all Syrians of all faiths, of all ethnicities and minorities feel safe and represented.
The move was also hailed by the Middle East Program, an American think tank based in Washington.
There's a humanitarian reason to want the sanctions to be lifted, which is that the people of Syria have suffered under the sanctions. They've suffered from natural disasters in the past few years. There was an earthquake not very long ago, and levels of poverty are extremely high. One of the biggest industries is the drug trade. One of the biggest industries is the drug trade in Captagon, which isn't good either. So if you want Syria to be able to make it as a country and not fall apart into a renewed civil war, it makes sense that you would want sanctions to be lifted and to have a chance to work with Syria's leaders to try to bring that about.
However, Kalanick also cautioned that while lifting sanctions could offer short-term relief, the United States should remain careful when engaging with Syria's new leadership. She warned that despite the changes, the situation remains volatile, and there are no guarantees about the future stability of the current regime.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan welcomed Trump's decision to lift sanctions on Syria during an online meeting with the US President, the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Syria's interim President Ahmed al-Shara. Erdogan called for a stable Syria and pledged support for Syria's fight against terrorist groups, expressing Ankara's readiness to assist in securing prisons holding ISIS members. He also urged for an end to violence in Gaza. The news of Trump's decision to remove sanctions on Syria was met with celebrations and fireworks in Damascus.
Jubilant crowds flooded the streets of Damascus on Tuesday after US President Donald Trump announced the lifting of sanctions on Syria, a major policy shift that sparked celebrations across the country. Fireworks lit up the sky and residents waved flags in celebration.
To be honest, it's something joyful. We are very happy. I live outside Syria, so I'm especially pleased with this decision. As you can see, everyone is happy. Thank God. May it be for the good of the country.
I thank Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, King Salman, and all the Saudi people for this moment of chivalry. Their support has been with us from the day we began the revolution until now. A million thanks.
It is a very positive step if this really happens, and we hope for the best because the people are truly tired and the conditions have been difficult in the past period. We hope for the best.
We have been waiting for this for many years. It feels like a mountain has been lifted off our chest because now people may live more freely. I expect living conditions to improve in the future. It won't be immediate, but it will take some time. I believe this time has become a bit shorter. Congratulations to all of us.
The announcement comes as Trump met President al-Shara in Riyadh on Wednesday, signaling a potential end to Syria's years-long isolation.
The Kremlin has condemned French President Emmanuel Macron's suggestion to deploy nuclear-armed warplanes in Europe, warning it would not enhance the continent's security. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Russia, the US, and European nuclear powers must do more to build a strategic security framework in Europe. He noted that the current system is in a poor and worsening state due to what he said are obvious reasons. The European Union has approved the 17th sanctions package on Moscow, targeting primarily its shadow oil fleet. The EU is also considering introducing tariffs on Ukrainian imports.
European Union ambassadors have reached agreement on the bloc's 17th package of sanctions against Russia during a meeting on Wednesday. According to Euronews, the measures blacklist nearly 200 vessels from Russia's so-called shadow fleet used to evade oil restrictions, along with 75 individuals and companies linked to Moscow's defense industry. The new package also bans the export of certain EU-made chemicals used in missile production, targets 30 companies accused of helping Russia bypass restrictions, and sanctions on more than 20 people and entities accused of spreading disinformation. The sanctions come as Western leaders, including Ukraine, France, Germany, Poland, and the UK, warn of further action if Russia refuses a proposed 30-day ceasefire. The Kremlin has not responded to the offer ahead of planned talks in Turkey on Thursday. At the same time, the European Union is preparing to end special trade measures for Ukraine. According to the Financial Times, Brussels plans to sharply reduce tariff-free quotas on Ukrainian exports starting next month, reversing the emergency trade deal introduced in 2022. That temporary agreement allowed most Ukrainian goods to enter the EU duty-free, helping Kiev's economy during wartime. But the surge of low-cost grain, poultry and sugar triggered backlash across the bloc. Farmers in Poland, France and other countries accused Ukrainian imports of driving down local prices. 2 EU diplomats told the FT that the planned transitional measures will sharply cut annual quotas for Ukrainian maize, sugar and poultry. Ukrainian officials warn the changes could slash export revenue by 3.5 billion euros a year. Talks to update the broader EU-Ukraine free trade deal are still ongoing, but not expected to conclude before the 6th of June deadline.
The European Court of Justice has annulled the European Commission's decision to withhold exchanges between Pfizer's CEO and Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen. The case was brought by the New York Times as they sought to obtain messages relating to the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines. William Denslow has more in Brussels.
In its ruling, the European Court of Justice says the Commission had not given a plausible explanation to justify the non-possession of the requested documents. The New York Times had requested access to text messages between European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and Pfizer's CEO, dating back to 2021. The US newspaper argues the exchanges between January 2021 to May 2022 could offer insight into the EU's multi-billion euro procurement of COVID-19 vaccines from the pharmaceutical giant. The Commission had rejected the Times' request, saying President von der Leyen had not kept the messages. A lawsuit was subsequently filed in 2023, and Europe's second top court found the paper succeeded in rebutting the presumption of non-existence and of non-possession of the requested documents. In response to the ruling, the Commission says transparency has always been of paramount importance, and that it will adopt a new decision providing a more detailed explanation. In its ruling, the General Court added that the Commission now has a 2-month window should it wish to appeal the decision. William Denslow, AnewZ, Brussels.
Turkish and Ukrainian foreign ministers Hakan Fidan and Andriy Sybiha met on the sidelines of a NATO ministers gathering in Antalya to talk on a possible ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine and broader peace efforts. Fidan reiterated Ankara's offer to host any future talks, while Sybiha said they held a detailed discussion on how to advance the peace process and bring the war with Russia to an end. Pope Leo XIV pledged to make every effort for peace and offered the Vatican's services to mediate global conflicts. He spoke with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, offering to facilitate peace talks. Zelensky plans to attend the Mass of Inauguration, set for May 18th, in the Vatican.
During an address to members of the Eastern Catholic churches, many hailing from conflict zones like Ukraine, Syria, Lebanon and Iraq, Pope Leo XIV emphasized the Vatican's readiness to facilitate dialogue.
The Holy See is always ready to help bring enemies together, face to face, to talk to one another, so that peoples everywhere may once more find hope and recover the dignity they deserve, the dignity of peace.
Pope Leo has made repeated calls for peace in the early days of his papacy. On Sunday, he called for an authentic and lasting peace in Ukraine, a ceasefire in Gaza, and the release of all Israeli hostages held by militant group Hamas. He also welcomed the fragile ceasefire between India and Pakistan. Pope Leo also warned against the rise of simplistic narratives that divide the world into good and evil, stating,
"War is never inevitable. Weapons can and must be silenced, for they do not resolve problems, but only increase them. Those who make history are the peacemakers, not those who sow seeds of suffering."
La guerra non è mai.
Pope Leo XIV's early actions signal a strong commitment to peace and dialogue, positioning the Vatican as a potential mediator in some of the world's most pressing conflicts.
Iran is set to hold talks in Istanbul on Friday with the European signatories of the nuclear deal from 2015, according to Iranian and European sources. Possibility of talks with Britain, Germany and France was also confirmed by Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Initially planned for May 2nd, the talks were postponed, with the Europeans being concerned that they might create a parallel track to the negotiations pursued by Washington. The fourth round of those negotiations was held on Sunday in Oman. Joining us from Nashville to talk on the latest in nuclear diplomacy is U.S. foreign policy analyst Steve Gill. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, the fifth round of the U.S.-Iran nuclear negotiations is expected in the coming days. Both sides spoke somewhat positively on the fourth one, held on Sunday, describing them encouraging and useful, respectively. The sheer start of the talks came as a surprise to many. What do you make of the progress made so far?
Well, the good thing is they are talking, and talking always has a better prospect of leading to a completed and successful negotiation. I think the biggest challenge right now is that President Trump had announced that the Houthis were going to stop firing on commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea. The Houthis, of course, are one of the proxies of Iran, and the Houthis have re-engaged with firing missiles and using drones on military and commercial vessels. So I think the challenge is, does Iran actually control their proxy? And if they do, are they doing enough to stop the firing of missiles in that area? So trust is hard, and when it's broken, it's hard to repair. And I think the challenge right now is whether or not the Iranians can be trusted by the West to either control their proxies or to do what they promised in these negotiations.
Now, Tehran is set to hold talks with the European three as well. London, Berlin, and Paris remained in the JCPOA after Donald Trump withdrew the U.S. in 2018 during his first term, which then led to Tehran ramping up uranium enrichment. How important would you say that the E3 is at this point, given the talks going on with the U.S.?
I think with the continued disputes with those countries and their leadership with respect to the Russia-Ukrainian conflict, with respect to trade barriers and non-tariff barriers to trade, I think their ability to influence Trump are probably at the lowest level they've been in a long time. Nevertheless, again, if you're talking, you're hopefully making some progress. I think the real challenge in these Iranian-U.S. negotiations are, to use the words of Ronald Reagan years ago, trust but verify. Can you figure ways to verify that Iran will do what they promised to do? And what do you do with the sanctions that have been imposed that were not enforced during the Biden administration? There were supposed to be limits on Iranian sale of oil that were not actually enforced by the Biden team. And I think that's going to be part of the negotiations taking place today and in the coming weeks.
Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you.
The recent conflict between India and Pakistan prompted a reassessment of Chinese weapons, following reports that Pakistan used its Chinese J-10C fighter jets to shoot down 5 Indian fighters, including French-made Rafale aircraft.
A recent military confrontation between Pakistan and India is prompting a global reassessment of Chinese-made weapons, traditionally viewed as less capable than Western arms. Reports suggest Pakistan used Chinese J-10C fighter jets to shoot down 5 Indian aircraft, including French-made Rafales. The news alone caused the Chinese manufacturer's market value to jump by over 55 billion yuan, more than $7.6 billion. The impact reaches far outside the region. Former Global Times editor Hu Xijin warned Taiwan should take notice, given Beijing's claims over the island. In Taipei, military analysts are closely tracking the developments. Xu Haxiao Huang of a defense think tank says China's air power may now rival US capabilities in East Asia, possibly pushing Washington to consider more advanced arms sales to Taiwan. Also drawing attention is China's PL-15 missile, reportedly recovered from the crash sites. Capable of speeds exceeding Mach 5, the missile's use in live combat boosts its credibility as a serious rival to Western weaponry. This could be a turning point for China's arms industry. Already the world's 4th largest exporter, China mainly sells to developing nations attracted by low prices and flexible terms. But with global defense spending rising, its combat-tested systems could appeal to countries seeking alternatives to Western suppliers. Analysts say this gives Beijing a stronger pitch, especially in the global south. Still, Beijing is pushing forward. President Xi Jinping aims to modernize the military by 2027 through greater integration of civilian and defense industries. Recent milestones include launching a massive amphibious assault ship and test flights of what's believed to be a sixth-generation fighter jet. While the J-10C may not represent a revolutionary leap, its reported combat performance signals real progress. For China, it's a chance to show its weapons can compete, not just in design, but in battle.
Armenia is reshaping its defense partnerships, turning away from its longtime ally, Russia. As its military ties with Moscow weaken, Yerevan is strengthening cooperation with India and France.
Between 2022 and 2023, Armenia signed defense contracts with India worth over $1.5 billion. During this period, Yerevan purchased 214mm Pinnaker multiple rocket launchers, 155mm ATAGS howitzers, ZDS anti-drone systems, Akash-1S air defense systems, Konkurs anti-tank missiles licensed from Russia, mortars, and various ammunition. A new shipment of Akash-NG medium-range air defense systems is expected soon. Another major defense partner is France. From 2023 to 2024, Armenia signed arms contracts worth approximately $250 million. The deals include 3 Groundmaster 200 radars, Mistral 3 portable air defense systems, and Caesar self-propelled artillery units. Armenia's last major deal with its CSTO ally Russia was signed in 2021 for $400 million, but it remains incomplete, according to the report. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute previously noted that Russia accounted for 94% of Armenia's arms imports between 2011 and 2020. However, by 2024, this share had dropped to 10%, according to Armenia's Security Council Secretary Armen Grigoryan, who spoke on national television in early March. The drop in Russian arms supplies is linked to war-related delivery issues, according to the Russian International Affairs Council. Meanwhile, public opinion in Armenia has shifted. A 2023 IRI poll ranked Russia as the third biggest threat, after Azerbaijan and Turkey. As part of its foreign policy shift, the Armenian government adopted a strategy of diversifying partnerships and moving closer to the West. In January 2025, Armenia signed a strategic partnership charter with the United States, and just a month later, Parliament approved a bill to launch the EU accession process. Despite these political changes, Russia remains Armenia's key trade partner. According to Armenia's Statistical Committee, in 2024, Russia accounted for more than 41% of Armenia's trade turnover, totaling $12.4 billion, including $3.1 billion in Armenian exports. In 2023, that figure stood at 37% or $7.9 billion. Over 2022 to 2023, the volume of accumulated Russian investment doubled to $4 billion. However, much of the trade growth was due to re-exporting Western goods to Russia and Russian goods to global markets via Armenia, according to the Russian International Affairs Council. Political analyst Artur Atayev says Armenia had long planned military technical ties with India to diversify arms sources and reduce reliance on Russia. He adds that France also helps fill the gap, but notes Yerevan isn't seeking a full break with Moscow. For Russia, Armenia's arms market isn't a priority. Continued cooperation is more important for Armenia, he says. Stanislav Prichin, senior research fellow from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations, argues that Indian and French weapons can't yet replace Soviet-era systems and sees the shift as mainly political. New weapons haven't proven themselves. Russian gear still needs maintenance and parts, and Armenia follows CSTO standards. The Russian base in Gyumri is still key, he explains. He adds that Armenia has become a transit hub for Russian trade, but warns that lifting sanctions or cutting off bypass routes could shrink trade volumes back to pre-2020 levels.
Armenian armed forces intermittently opened fire on Azerbaijani army positions, according to the Azerbaijani Defense Ministry. The ministry stated that shots were fired between 8:45 and 9:30 last evening using small arms. Armenia has not yet issued a statement on the incident. Anatolian Phoenix 2025, an international search and rescue exercise kicked off in Konya, Turkey. Forces from 10 countries are participating in the drills designed to sharpen operational skills and build stronger ties in humanitarian missions.
Military forces from 10 nations are taking part in an international search and rescue exercise in Turkey. The Anatolian Phoenix 2025 is underway in Konya, enhancing coordination in humanitarian search and rescue operations. Hosted by the Turkish Ministry of National Defense, the drills will feature forces and aircraft from the United States, Germany, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Italy, Qatar, Romania, Slovakia and Saudi Arabia, each contributing to complex simulated rescue scenarios in challenging environments. Azerbaijan is also participating with a contingent of Air Force personnel, including pilots, support crew and Su-25 attack aircraft. Anatolian Phoenix 2025 tests the tactical readiness of each country's forces and also strengthens the coordination between nations essential in real-life crisis response. From disaster zones to conflict areas, this joint training is a rehearsal for rapid, coordinated action. The drills will build trust, share expertise, and enhance the global community's ability to respond swiftly and effectively when disaster strikes. The exercise will continue until the 23rd of May.
U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff said that countries like Lebanon, Syria, Libya, Azerbaijan, and Armenia could soon join the Abraham Accords. He cited positive reactions and progress towards resolving conflicts in these nations. Witkoff expressed confidence that more countries could join the Abraham Accords in the coming months. He said this would reflect Trump's commitment to advancing peace and stability in the region. Joining us from Amsterdam to briefly talk on Witkoff's announcement regarding the Abraham Accords is former Mossad officer Ken van Ierland. Hi, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Now, what could signing of the accords bring to a country such as Azerbaijan, and what could even be the timeline for all of these countries Witkoff mentioned to sign the accords?
Well, I think it brings stability in a region which has been in turmoil for decades, actually. So the Abraham Accords is essential for creating peace between countries that have been at war with each other for a very long time. And it's not only for, let's say, for peace perception, but also for economical reasons that it is important and imperative to create a new region in peace and take out all the extremities that we have seen over so many years. So I think it's a wonderful initiative by the Trump administration to pursue what they have started so many years ago, to extend the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia, possibly Syria, Lebanon, and involving Azerbaijan is a very, very hard idea, because Azerbaijan is in a unique position to bring prosperity but also peace to the region and deal between enemies that have been facing each other for a very, very long time. So this is a great initiative.
I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts on the timeline? Because Witkoff mentioned a whole lot of countries. How much time would you say this could take?
Well, that's always a big question, but the fact actually is that the Trump administration are putting a lot of pressure on this. It's of eminent importance to make it happen actually in a very short timeline and not too long. Because, it's very difficult with the current situation in Gaza and Lebanon and in Syria to take a very long period of time to make this happen. I think that the timing is essential to make it happen right now.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Caspian Agro 2025 has opened in Baku, showcasing the latest in agriculture, AI-driven technologies, and startup ideas. As the region's largest agricultural event, it brings together hundreds of companies from around the world and will run through May 16th.
The Caspian Agro 2025 exhibition, which brings together hundreds of companies, is attracting growing international interest. Among the participants are manufacturers of agricultural machinery, suppliers of seeds and fertilizers, companies specializing in irrigation systems, as well as representatives of the food industry. Spacious pavilions have been set up for exhibitors to showcase their products and services, as well as to establish new partnership opportunities.
A lot of Georgian products already participated in Azerbaijani market, but we want more because our relationship is really very good actually, and we think that this company has a great opportunity to find the local partners here and to increase our export. We have 7 Georgian companies this year, and probably we think that year by year we will increase these numbers, and the interest of Georgian companies to be in Azerbaijan market is very high.
Visitors have the opportunity to explore the latest innovations, from AI-powered machinery to organic fertilizers and environmentally friendly food products.
Currently, we have the early warning system for forecasting disease and pests, which is damaging main agricultural varieties, crops. Another one is like a crop variety map, which is like it's a quite technical issue that the farmers doesn't know where to grow what. So in this sense, we are helping to them to make a better decision for their farms in terms of the climate and the soil condition, particularly in their locations, in their field.
In recent years, due to the growing interest in digitalization and innovations in agriculture, this topic has been presented as one of the key focuses of the exhibition.
All for food technology, food processing and agriculture. And the most exhibitors are the first time here in Azerbaijan, and they have very good products to support the food industry, the food processing, to make very safe food stuff.
Smart agriculture, drone technologies, intelligent irrigation systems, and data-driven productivity analysis are among the key topics that have captured the interest of the exhibition participants.
Here we are showcasing 5 companies from various sectors: alcoholic beverages, medicine and cosmetics, plants and seeds, honey and dairy products. Some of these companies are already present in the Azerbaijani market. For example, Bashspurt, a producer of alcoholic beverages, has been operating here for 3 years. As for the other companies, they are just taking their first steps toward entering the Azerbaijani market. Our main goal is to establish business contacts. We want to find partners, build cooperation, and strengthen economic ties between Russia and Azerbaijan.
For the first time, the agricultural startup zone has been established at the exhibition. Here, young innovators showcase their ideas and present them to potential investors. Caspian Agro is no longer just an exhibition. It has become a vital platform where the agricultural future of the region is being shaped.
We produce in Rome. We have here if you see, fresh boiled products. We deal in vegetables mainly. You find that our products are very special, not only because they are natural, without oil, additives, salt, they have nothing on them, because of our patented process. We have a European patent pending on our process, and by now we are trying to get here in Azerbaijan in the markets, in the supermarkets, but also with our technology. It would be very interesting to establish proficuous participation, cooperation with your country.
So using our machines, the Azerbaijan companies, the manufacturing dried persimmons, especially in the Jakarta and the Balkans, the Balkruma, using the peeling machines. In Korea, we also very famous about the apples. Also, we have the Korea own the apples varieties, and also we have own the Korea styles, the orchard, the systems here. So we wanted to cooperate with that kind of systems, and then we wanted to communicate about that kind of systems at all.
Running until May 16th, Caspian Agro 2025 will shape future trends in agriculture while reinforcing collaboration between the public and private sectors in advancing the industry.
Afghanistan is moving to boost regional trade. The country's transport minister met with Azerbaijan's ambassador in Kabul to deepen cooperation on the Lapis Lazuli corridor, a route connecting Afghanistan to Europe. Our Tamim Bahis has more.
Afghanistan is taking another step toward regional economic integration. In Kabul, Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation Hamidullah Akhundzada met with Azerbaijani Ambassador Ilham Mammadov to discuss strengthening transit and trade cooperation. The meeting focused on expanding bilateral ties in trade and logistics, with both sides emphasizing the importance of the Lapis Lazuli corridor, a strategic trade route linking Afghanistan to Europe via Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Georgia and Turkey. The corridor is named after the ancient Afghan gemstone Lapis Lazuli, once transported along this very path to European markets. Officials discussed ways to improve transit efficiency and reduce bureaucratic hurdles along the route. Minister Akhundzada highlighted that Azerbaijan, with its ports on the Caspian Sea, plays a vital role in connecting Afghan goods to Europe, while also gaining access to South Asian markets through Afghanistan. Ambassador Mammadov welcomed the cooperation and reaffirmed Azerbaijan's support for joint infrastructure projects that improve connectivity across the region. The two sides agreed to form working groups to follow up on technical and custom coordination. As efforts continue, the Lapis Lazuli corridor could become a cornerstone for regional trade, linking Central Asia with Europe and beyond. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for AnewZ.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan said his country wants closer ties with the European Union during talks with European Commission's Director General for Neighborhood and Enlargement negotiations. According to Armenian media, the two discussed the current stage of Armenia-EU relations, including the implementation of the Comprehensive and Enhanced Partnership Agreement. Talks also covered economic and sectoral cooperation, green energy, infrastructure development, and democratic reforms. They also discussed the normalization process between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Georgian Prime Minister Irakli Kobahidze has addressed U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, expressing concern over what he calls the absence of high-level communication and a series of unfriendly legislative moves in Washington. Kobahidze appealed for a strategic reset, urging Washington to reaffirm its support for Georgia's sovereignty and democratic trajectory. Georgia's parliament adopted a draft law on diplomatic service in an expedited manner. Critics see the changes being introduced as a tool of political control, while the government calls them a step toward greater professionalism. Our Nini Nikolaishvili has the details in Tbilisi.
Changes initiated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs introduce stricter ethical standards and evaluation mechanisms for diplomats. Under the new rules, the diplomatic staff will be required to perform their duties honestly, guided by the public interest and the general rules of ethics. The law also expands grounds for earlier dismissal if the diplomat's conduct is seen as damaging to the country's picture or contradicts Georgia's official foreign policy line. Another key change is the extension of overseas assignments from 6 months to 1 year and more frequent performance evaluation at least twice a year. The government says that these reforms will strengthen discipline and align the diplomatic corps with core state values. But the opposition parties and civil society groups warn that these reforms could be used for political control and could open the door for politically motivated purges. They claim that the vague definition of public interest and ethics could be used to sideline diplomats seen as disloyal or independent. The analysts say that these changes raises fresh questions about Georgia's diplomatic independence and its commitment to the democratic standards. With the international partners closely watching Tbilisi's political trajectory, any perception of politicizing the foreign services could further strain Georgia's global reputation, particularly with the EU and its Western allies. It's Nini Nikolaishvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.